Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and today we have another episode of, well, I decided it was Maintaining Frame. I think that makes the most sense. International What is a Woman Day, where we're going to be looking at an article from Spiked and maybe like talking about like the absolute state of women because
What
it
is a
looks
woman?
like they're, the best women are trans women. They're like
Oh my god, that's
they top all the charts. So, and I don't
Okay.
think that the regular women are happy about that. So, and I'm here for it. I think it's really
Yeah,
funny. Let them
yeah,
fight.
well, okay. Now, personally, that
Mm,
was a very spicy take, but personally, I think that I'm really against any kind of genital surgery. Generally, all across the board, I think it's a bad idea, and specifically on children it shouldn't happen, and that's
sure.
all genital surgeries on children, including circumcision. And I don't think that we should use puberty blockers. Just leave kids alone is my opinion. But
Sure.
on the other hand,
I
I
mean,
think that live and let live is probably the policy we should have
yeah.
with
I know
trans
that
women.
I know the trans thing is a sensitive topic, and
Hmm.
I'm not
Yes, you are.
attacking.
You are
No.
totally making light, and it's fine. I'm here
No,
for
no,
that.
no. I'm not attacking them. I okay,
No.
look. I think there's a difference between transgender people that are experiencing gender dysphoria and trans trenders that want to feel important and so they assign themselves, a gender or they whatever. But I'm not what I'm literally saying is that trans women are better women than regular women. That's all I'm saying. Like they win at the swim
They women at
competitions.
swimming,
Yeah,
they women at
basketball.
they
They just
probably can bake
dominate.
better,
Yeah,
considering that women
I
don't
mean,
bake
Caitlyn
anymore.
Jenner was Woman of the Year or something. Like I'm just saying, like maybe the best women used to be men. So
Okay. Oh my god, we're gonna
that's
get so
it. It's
many
I
angry
don't think
comments.
that's it's not mean to anyone. So, but
I actually think that you've hit the fifth dimensional super like misogyny, but it can't be called out as such. It can't. Nobody can.
well,
No, it's unimpeachable because it's totally and utterly in
yeah, I mean,
line
what
with
are you, a turf? Like you need to like get on
exactly.
board.
Hmm. Men make
um
better women. Get on board.
yeah, exactly. All right, so we're going to be
Maybe
looking.
literally when sex bots come
Well,
out.
this is something that I saw coming a mile off when I knew that International Women's Month, because I don't know if you guys know, but we have an International Women's Day and by extension an International Women's Month. So
Oh
basically the
god.
entire month of March is Women's Month, and today, so it's extra celebratory is Women's Day. And I had to kind of like harangue and tempt Allison to like do a show because I'm like, well, can we miss this? Like we need to
Like,
do
yeah,
this
we
on.
can miss it.
We could,
We
but
could miss it.
we could have, yeah.
We
Um,
could have just looked at the freaking dumpster fire and just kept on walking. We
well,
could
that
have.
the funny thing about International Women's Day is it's not getting as much steam as it used to. I think that people are generally like don't care as much.
Sick of it. Well, I mean, what is a woman? What
Yeah, what
exactly
even
are we
is a woman? I mean,
celebrating?
how do you that's the thing too, right? It's very transphobic. Like, what even is a woman? And
Mm-hmm.
so that is something I'm sure to see at some point, or it's probably already a TikTok video or something, essentially saying that International Women's Day and International Women's Month is problematic because it excludes, all kinds of things. I mean, did you see that there was like this basketball team, the Toronto Raptors, the only Canadian basketball team in the NBA, and they put out a. So they had a couple of the players put out like a statement about Women's Day, and they asked the players, these like basketball players or athletes, right? They're not sociologists, right? They're not the brightest guys. Asking them, why do women matter? Like, what makes them special? And they were all like, oh, they birth children,
Oh
but
my
they were
God.
being nice. Like, what?
Prepare the stakes for burning.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. The offense machine was, running on fifth gear. And of
Mm.
course, the Raptors got so much shit from feminists and just women in general because they were like, we are more than just baby making machines, right? That they had to put out an apology statement. and they were trying to recognize International Women's Day. So, just know that there's no doing that.
Okay. Like, seriously, how do you answer the question, or how do you value women as women without being biologically essentialist? Like, this is what's
Uh-huh.
so in everything is so much crazy fuck in the
Yeah.
world in regards to gender. It's just like, I mean, I'm not stupid, but I don't understand. Oh, I can't follow the logic of any of this.
Well, it's
Like,
not
okay, so you
logical.
put a bunch of young athletes, presumably young, right? They
Mm-hmm.
generally are. Older men need not apply. Um, and you put them in the spot, and you say, "Well, what do you value about women?" But quick, you can't say anything biologically essentialist. Okay, you can't actually say anything that would reduce down to women physically. Well, then, what the fuck? Compliment this category without referring to this category. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how do you do that? Like,
So we're gonna pretend women exist until they don't.
yeah,
So
how do you compliment women without complimenting something that they all share biologically?
yeah.
Or are you complimenting? Okay, so let's say we were inclusive of trans women, and we're going to compliment women. What do we compliment here? We're complimenting the desire to identify as a woman?
Yeah,
Huh?
I guess.
But
Well, that
what benefit does that bring the world?
it's a mess. It
Yeah,
is a
it's, I
mess.
mean, unless you buy into the feminist rhetoric that men rape because of their identities, because
Uh-huh.
they identify as men. In which case, a man who disavows his identity as a man is making women safer somehow.
Yep.
It's like, it is so much convoluted fuck now
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'm so glad that my position as a human being is based on logic and reason. And I don't have to worry about containing all of this, like these, I would how to describe this, like two skunks having an argument in a roadway in my brain, because this is what these ideologies reduce your brain down to.
Yeah.
Basically, two freaking stinky animals going at it constantly. God, that must be loud at night. Can you imagine these people?
I don't
What
know
is a
what.
woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
So anyway, I figured that there was going to be an article written at some point that basically says we should not celebrate trans women because this is International Women's Day and trans women are not women to this person. Not I'm not saying that, but they are. And we have one. This is from Spiked online.com, and it's written by Ella Whelan, and it's entitled "International Women's Day is not for men. Stop telling
okay.
women we need to make room for biological males."
I'm trying to get like a feel of Spiked. I think it's more of a conservative
Is
platform.
it? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's like conservative, not like necessarily fiscally conservative, because nobody is anymore. Everybody's all about the universal
It's a
income.
British internet magazine focusing on politics, culture, and society. And had many of the same editors and contributors as Living Marxism, which I don't know like what that is. Um, it
She
it
made
says the
a
general agreement is that Spiked is libertarian, with the majority of specialist academic studies identifying it as right libertarian and some sources identifying as left libertarian.
but
So
of
it's
course,
sort of a
they,
middle
yeah,
ground.
that's the read I was getting. But of course, they still think that, or at least this author still thinks women are victims of society. I
That's
mean,
yeah, that's probably going to be her ending.
that's pretty much the baseline for our society at this point, which is patently ridiculous. Society
Mm-hmm.
exists to put women in the most safe and supplied area of the world. That's literally what it. You know why the termite mound exists to support the
Mm-hmm.
queen. Human society exists to make sure that women are fed and safe. There's no
Yeah.
other reason for it to exist other than the fact that women are sort of helpless. It's not that they're not productive in and of themselves, but they are sort of helpless relative to the natural environment, which is full of fuck. You don't want to integrate. Like there's one story that really illustrates this even now. Okay, so there was a huntsman up in, I guess, northern Canada, and he was, I guess, trapping things. And one of his traps was a bear stole it. And he got into an altercation with his bear and managed to chase it off with, shooting at it. And the bear tracked his cabin down and killed his wife and child.
Whoa.
Okay? Think about that. That is something that happened within the last decade. Okay? That is nature. That is how nature do. And that is how vulnerable women are to nature. Why does human society exist? Because women are that vulnerable. Yeah, and it doesn't mean that they aren't productive in their harems and in their huts and in their homes, but that is why society exists. It is absolute absurdity to turn around and then say men constructed society for their own benefit at the expense of women. People who believe this are enduring some kind of psychotic brain rot. And I don't think they believe it. I think they enjoy the effects because it's like I said, that idea of the two smelly animals fighting in your
Yeah.
brain, it creates that. That stupid lie creates that effect. And then you can control people with it. And that's all it does. It's just a lie to control people. So yeah, she likely believes it. And I'm an essentialist on that score. Is it essentialist the right word? Like I am an extremist, perhaps. You got to get rid of that thought. It is absurd and it is destructive. It's got to go. And if you're a libertarian who has that thought, you're not going to be a libertarian for long. Because eventually your libertarianism is going to run up against your, we have to save the women's constantly, and guess which is going to win? All right, so Spiked, that's what defines them. I guarantee it. That at the end of the day, that belief is what defines them.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet that this woman is the author of this column. I haven't even read it yet, but I'm willing to bet that she is a second wave feminist. Like she's like,
Probably.
that's when it was perfect, And I think we're gonna hear about that because at that time, they were doing some hardcore gatekeeping of trans people, specifically trans women, and it was like nobody had a problem with it because at that time the lobby wasn't as big as it is now. But more than that, I mean, this is just most people's default position. Like if you ask,
it's their default position.
The second wave was good. It was important, right? That's what they'll say. It just went off the rails like in the last decade or so. But
they don't put it in context, right?
No.
Like, the second wave is about votes, but they don't put it in context that they're already starting with the lie.
The second wave is the Gloria Steinem 1960s.
Oh right, the suffragettes.
The suffragettes are the. I mean, of course, and again, even with that, they'll totally be like, oh yeah, that's fine. But that's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get, and the thing is that second wave feminists are, I think, who the intersectionals and the trans activists, I guess, refer to as TERFs because I guess technically they were, but so yeah.
Well, just to look at the history of feminism, I think that you could probably define the waves by what groups of people they excluded. Like if you're looking at the suffragettes, a lot of them really didn't like black people.
Or the poor.
Or the poor. And a lot of the initiative to get women votes, mostly rich women, was to block out black people and the poor from influencing democracy. So that first wave just didn't like black people. And then eventually feminist women sort of warmed to the fact that they could appropriate the civil rights movement and their problems into essentially just go to black men and steal all of the potential victimhood, that they had. Just sort of yoink, that's mine now. And then we get second wave feminism, which is what happened when they stole all the victimhood from black men. And then the second wave feminists actually, they didn't necessarily come out strong against trans women because trans women weren't really on the radar at that point. What they disliked was gay men.
Like I was gonna say
they call the blue stockings.
Yeah,
but eventually
hijacked the gay people, the gay men.
Yeah, eventually they warmed to the fact that they could steal victimhood from gay men, and they went yoink, that's mine now. And then we give third wave feminism, and now we're basically at the process of they're going to somehow figure out how to steal the victimhood from trans women. But it feels like this is going to be a little bit trickier. This is going to be, this is like instead of the invading of of Egypt, that this isn't the invasion of Egypt that black people represented. It isn't the invasion of Iraq that gay men represented. It's more like the invasion of Afghanistan. This is going to be a little trickier for feminists. You know what I mean? Empires always seem to want to invade certain countries. And we're at Afghanistan now, which might pose trans women are the I bet everybody's scratching their head over what the hell I'm talking about. Trans women are the Afghanistan of victim groups. Good luck, feminists. Good luck.
So
you might find yourself defeated by Afghanistan.
Or at least pulling out really badly. So
oh man,
let's get into the article. Yeah, stop telling women we need to make room for biological males. So she's clearly just saying trans women are not women, they are men. When German communist Clara Zetkin and her comrades announced the first Women's Day in 1911, they declared that socialist women of all countries are in solidarity with you. Calling on women to take to the streets, they demanded that Women's Day, quote, be your day of glory, end quote. Over a century later, one wonders what Zetkin and her sisters in arms would have thought of the prospect of sharing their day of glory with biological men. Oh, perish that.
I already have questions. Okay. I already have questions here. All right, so Women's Day was originally socialist. And this libertarian outlet is defending it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I know.
I didn't realize that my prediction of what would happen when her libertarian beliefs collide with that particular attitude would just deteriorate. Like it would just be proven in the first paragraph. That's new.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, the only thing I could conclude is that this woman doesn't know what libertarianism means, or she's trying to sabotage Spiked by, making these defenses of essentially, commies that created Women's Day. And go ahead.
Well, the idea that women exist as a class to be celebrated,
a collective,
is a collective to be celebrated, seems to me to be anti-libertarian on its face.
It is, yeah.
Like,
It really
so,
doesn't make sense.
And fundamentally, because I'm not a lunatic with two stinking animals in my brain fighting, I know that women generally set the tone of social expectation because they occupy the emotional center of a culture. So when your women are like, yeah, we're all a collective, the idea of a collective being a good thing starts to permeate everything. And I don't mean a collective like, oh, we're all part of this community. Oh, we're all part. No, oh, we're all part of an ideological group based on biological factors. And that's okay. Well, there you go. That's the first stone. That's the first salvo towards breaking the idea of the individual.
Yeah, that's the first chink in the armor.
Right.
So yeah, so she's bringing up a kind of ludicrous example, like we're supposed to be concerned with what a female communist thinks about the idea of being more inclusive, which is what trans women being a part of the women's. And look, frankly, I don't give a shit about Women's Day, but I just, this is like, for me, this is just spectacle. Like, this is what they're doing to each other.
It's like we're watching, we're just eyeing the pit of voles.
Yeah.
Or the Thunderdome. And it's like, well, this is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, this has absolutely.
Isn't there like a Simpsons meme where there are two people fighting and a bunch of people around them? Anyway, these days, International Women's Day always comes with an asterisk next to it to explain who it is now for. Right on, NGOs seem desperate to tell those celebrating that this Women's Day is not just for women. Quote, it's more important than ever to remember that this day is for and about all women, not just cisgender women, end quote, writes the Australian Institute of International Affairs. Similarly, Oxfam has marked IWD, and what's IWD stand for? By International Women's Day, by tweeting that it is time to amplify the power of, quote, trans women, disabled women, and refugees and migrants, end quote. Wait a minute. Are disabled women not women? Like, were they not included? Are refugee women and migrant women not women? What about refugee and migrant men?
No, they don't matter.
Yeah, they don't care. Even though I think the majority of migrants, I think they're men, but
yeah, not the refugees though. Men are more likely to die in conflict.
Yeah. No, I mean migrants.
Oxfam, that's a name I know. All I can say is that if Oxfam is the international charity that put pressure on like there was a service in one of the really war-torn African countries for victims of wartime rape. And the director was actually treating male victims. And Dutch Oxfam put pressure on him to make sure that the number of victims that he treated that were male never exceeded 30%. It's because they didn't want their funds going to men.
Wow.
And honestly, if Dutch Oxfam's like, okay, I mean, maybe that guy can just be like, slap these poor bastards in a wig and a dress and say, hey, Dutch Oxfam, can I treat him now? And this was horrible injuries that he was treating, like anal incontinence, fistulas. Like these guys couldn't even sit down, and other genital injuries.
Oh God!
So this was serious fucking shit. And Dutch Oxfam's like, no, you're treating too many men. So you know what? Honestly, I think that we have a bigger fucking problem with Dutch Oxfam than this woman could possibly conceive of. And like I said, if this leads to this guy, who I no doubt is not happy with the thought of having to turn away patients just because they have a penis, if this leads to a situation where he can just say, well, Agrabobo actually identifies as Agraboba, like I'm being an asshole with the names, but so can
That's
we
spicier
treat
than what I
her
said.
now? Can we treat her now?
Yeah.
If that leads to that situation, maybe it's a good thing. But
Yeah.
also, this woman's problems are trivial.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so astounding about this. Like,
Yep.
literally, men are being discriminated against when they suffer debilitating injuries as a result of wartime rape because of Dutch Oxfam. But we have to
Oh.
care that Oxfam is like, yeah, let's also include trans women. Really? Why don't you get a grip? And you're not
Yeah.
much of a libertarian if you're like, we need to preserve the purity of this socialist
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Okay, so
Okay.
speaking of anal ripping and
Sorry, guys.
Hershey's
Sorry.
chocolate has gone even further. Hershey's chocolate has gone even further,
That was a
celebrating
horrible.
International Women's Day with an ad that features a trans woman urging consumers to quote see the women changing how we see the future end quote. That's got a lot of people talking. International Women's Day main. Oh, go ahead.
Well, okay. Okay. You did this to yourselves, ladies.
Yes, they did.
You basically removed the idea of any kind of biological essentialism. And again, I'm going back to that image of those poor kids, basketball players. Any man under 35 is a kid to me now. Those poor basketball players trying to figure out how to compliment women without,
that's right.
Without appealing to them as a group. Like anyway, you removed the biological component from recognizing the sexes. Okay, you were like, yeah, that's not convenient for us because that might lead people to say, well, maybe the pay gap is because of women's choices or the fact that they aren't as good at certain things or aren't as interested in certain things. Now, you didn't want that because you wanted to be victims of the pay gap. You wanted to be victims of men having their own positive identity, which had qualities that you evinced less of. So you wanted to get rid of all of that because it was hurtful and because you wanted to be a victim of things being different, of victim of equity instead of equality. Okay, you did that. So you got away from you got rid of the biological categories, you got rid of biological essentialism, and then you basically defined women socially as victims. So it doesn't matter what's between your legs. What matters is if you can prove you're a victim of society, and then suddenly you pop out of the category of male and you pop into another category. Well, this is why you're dealing with this shit now. And the only way to stop dealing with this shit now is to go back to recognizing that men exist as their own thing. Okay? That they have qualities that women don't generally have, or at least don't have as much. Like, seriously, one quality is this. So I have a patron who sent me this video of a gigantic machine tunneling through a mountain. Okay? All right. I'm like looking at this and I appreciated it because it's interesting on a technical standpoint. I watched it because it's intriguing. The moment I turned it on to like the living room screen, Jonathan, my husband, appeared from nowhere. Like he just apparated from nowhere, and he was like watching this the way a cat watches, the cat TV. This process of these men boring a gigantic tunnel through the mountain, like just fascinated by it. And I'm like, that's a difference, okay? And I'm actually a fairly masculine woman. It's interesting, but it is not fascinating to me, okay? These things fascinate men. The whole process of drilling a hole through a mountain is fascinating to men. I don't see women fascinated in the same way by stuff like that. And that is a male quality, a positive male quality that we benefit greatly from. Their fascination with drilling holes through mountains. Okay? And you we all went away from that. We all went away from recognizing the positive benefits that masculinity brings into the world because we didn't want to exclude women from anything. God forbid women feel like men have something to give the world that women don't generally have to give to the world. Wouldn't they feel horrible about that? So we got away from all of this biology stuff, and now it's slapping you in the face. Like, okay. Am I still here? Have I dropped out?
No, it's okay. I was muted. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
No, I was able to hear everything.
Okay.
I heard
Okay.
all
I was
of it.
just a little bit.
All of
Yeah.
it.
No, I get it. I'm glad that you were.
I
it's
just
just, it
was
felt
I
like.
was just muted because I was coughing. So
Oh yeah, I understand. You're
yeah.
still recovering. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think I picked up a cough, but I'm
Hmm.
hoping that it's it's a lot better now, so it probably would just go away.
Okay. Understandable.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Anyway, International Women's Day may now be little more than an opportunity for corporations. Excuse me, here we are.
Do you want me to take
For
it up?
corporations to display their woke credentials, and no doubt many women simply ignore it. But it is still depressing that we women can't even have a day to ourselves without having to share space
well,
with biological men.
you don't deserve a day for yourself.
Yeah, you brought this on yourself too. That's
like
the thing.
seriously.
Yeah.
What?
It's not men that were like, I don't know, marching and protesting and saying, trans lives matter and all this. It's not them. It's mostly trans people, like trans activist types, and women. Like it's women, like they totally drive all
liberal
this.
feminists. They're totally behind this. And
Yeah.
they're totally behind this because, again, they're warming to the feeling of being able to have that kind of victimhood. And they get a sense of piety out of it. Like, this is the big thing. Like, people are freaking out about how these liberal women behave towards, for example, Black people or LGBTQ+. It's because they're getting a sense of piety out of being submissive to these groups. And they're also getting a bludgeon to manipulate the men in their lives. Like they get a sense that they are the ones who understand the world. Therefore, they are the ones who should be listened to when they speak. Okay, that's what they're getting out of it. It's powerful. It's a powerful, alluring thing, this self-righteousness and also the piety. That's what these liberal feminists are getting out of it. And that's why they're warming to all of this and pushing all of this. And that's what's giving so much empowerment to the more and more extreme trans women and men and trans activists. Okay, that's what's happening here. That's where it's coming from. It's being driven by liberal women. So, even the trans women don't have that level of power. They have it because liberal women have championed them as their purse puppies.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So, like, this is entirely your doing.
Yeah.
And to undo it, you have to actually start recognizing men as their own thing again. But that's not going to happen because, like, how can you say to these individuals, these trans women, well, you're not real women. What is a woman? If a woman is not physically different from a man, doesn't have her own impulses and interests and abilities based on her hormonal landscape, you literally said that when people are point out, hey, women's biology is different, that's going to lead to different outcomes, that was sexist and actually oppression of women. So all of that stuff was actually a demonstration of oppression of women, which, incidentally, I think was the point. I think it's always the point to gain the self-righteousness of victimhood. So if you can reframe something that's a result of biology as a result of oppression, then you gain the self-righteousness of victimhood. That's where that comes from. So you deny the biological. Women aren't different from men. There isn't character traits that men are more likely to have, interests that men are more likely to have, abilities that men are more likely to have, physical strength that men are more likely to have. No, everything is oppression because we want that sweet, sweet, sweet victimhood nectar. Okay? And you did this. Now, what is a woman?
Yeah, now you have to deal with the monster you created. So
like,
it's like I ain't got nothing to do with this.
Yeah, men have nothing to do with this except
No,
for
they don't.
continuing to just try to keep things running while you make it harder and harder for them. And incidentally, I'm pretty sure that's how the Bronze Age collapsed.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm really hoping for like a genteel slump that, you know, like the Roman Empire never really collapsed. It just sort of slumped and then moved east. You know, that would be nice. That would be excellent. Not a Bronze Age collapse. A Bronze Age collapse, not what you want. A Bronze Age collapse is when Andrew Tates of the world morph into Genghis Khan, and you are dealing with gigantic gangs of basically young male pirates stealing your shit. And it is nothing. It is nothing but horror. And the only thing you can do is go up on a hill and build a fort and hope to God you survive. Okay, we don't want that. But this what we're seeing right now is looking a lot like the Bronze Age collapse. Because it was a systems collapse. And I'm pretty sure it was a systems collapse because the bureaucracy just became so insanely top heavy that nobody could make anything anymore. And it was just like, foop, gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it took 50 years, but boy, when it went. Okay, that's a little bit of a digression, but anyway.
Okay. So continuing. When International Women's Day was first conceived as an international working women's day in the 1900s, its purpose was to forge political solidarity between women. There was a recognition that, in certain areas of life, women had a different experience to men and certain distinct rights that needed to be fought for. These days, even the simple idea that our biological makeup is different to that of men is considered blasphemy.
Okay. There was a recognition that in certain areas of life, women had a different experience to men and certain distinct rights that needed to be fought for. Do you mean like women weren't drafted?
Yeah.
Here's what really galls me. Now, I'm not saying that women shouldn't have had the vote. But the fact is that after women got the vote, we lied to ourselves about reality. Instead of recognizing, okay, women now have a legally superior position relative to men, because there's no way around it. If men are obligated to the state and women are not, and men do and both have the same benefits, then women's situation is superior. And that's the case. It's been the case throughout every single civilization. That women's situation, their physical comfort, their ability to access resources and be protected is always superior to that of men, regardless of the legal situation. But now we're doing the same thing with the laws. Now they're legally superior. And nobody recognizes that. Nobody is willing to just be like, that just happened. I mean, whether or not women should have the vote is separate from that debate. Just recognize that it constructed a situation of legal superiority for women. And did women actually deserve that? Probably not. Like, every single group of men who ever got the franchise had to fight first for the country that they got a say in. That includes the aristocrats. And in fact, people started to be extremely resentful of aristocrats precisely when they started to be less and less useful militarily. All right?
Yeah.
So this is a very clear thing that happened throughout history. And yet women are the only group that never had to bleed and die and suffer to get the benefit of a stay in the state. And don't give me this childbirth thing. That's just a natural process. It's like saying cancer patients earn their right through the state by having cancer. Well, no, that isn't a chosen sacrifice for the state. So I mean, and this is there's nowhere in that. And that's the first denial of biology, is all of the mythology around the vote for women. That's the first denial.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't incorporate the expected sacrifices, the sacrifices that society expects of men, and men expect of men, and men empower and force on men, which is in and of itself a biological role. Like in every freaking species, which of the two sexes is on the outside fighting off the cougar? Let me just, spoilers, it's the male. So this, like the going back to the 1900s and saying, oh, this is a recognition that in certain areas of life women needed rights. Okay, needed? Well, they got them. They didn't necessarily need them, but they got them. Did they deserve them? No. And that's the first point where our society started to deviate from reality and biological reality between the sexes.
Yeah.
And started to lie to itself. Like I said, you could give women the vote and just be like, we're giving women the vote because they're women, the end. But this is that we recognize that this situation is one of legal superiority. And also we don't expect them to fulfill the biological role of men as protector.
Right.
Okay? You could have done that and just been honest.
Could have done that.
Everything has to be a goddamn lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I got two things. One is I hate that we call the vote a right. It's not a right. Men only get it under condition, and women, for them, it's basically a privilege. It's just a straight up privilege, and they get to direct society without having to take anything into consideration. They can just go off of whatever they feel. Like, oh, I like this guy, looks handsome, I'm gonna vote for him. Whereas men, especially like if we're dealing with stressful times that could lead to war, they have to really think carefully about that. And I think it's a responsibility. So I'm not, I know that people say the right to vote, but I think that's just not an accurate phrase. We have to stop saying that voting is a right. It is not. And because it's not a negative right. And I think that rights are negative, like they're things the government cannot do to you. For example, conscription. You could liberate yourself from that if you made it a right to not be essentially controlled by the state. The other thing I was going to say is, have you seen the film 1917, which is a recent-ish World War I film, Allison?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
Yes, I watch a lot. I watch and read a lot of war fiction or war stories.
Yeah, so
it's one of the reasons why I think I have a much better perception of history than any feminist could possibly ever boast.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, recently I actually spoke to a feminist and I put a picture of a man from World War I dead in a trench with his face blown off and being eaten by maggots. And I said to him, okay, point to me the comparable situation that women have been through, that women have suffered, that is comparable to this. And of course, he just responded with calling me hysterical. Mm-hmm. It's like, there is no comparable situation. The fact is that the fact that men are expected to war, there's no comparable situation for women ever in human history. There's no comparable sacrifice. There's no comparable suffering. There's no comparable loss. It just eclipses women's contribution.
Yeah.
And that it is impossible to argue. And the truth of the matter is, women are the ones that you sell war to. The CIA, they've recently declassified files where we found out that the CIA went out of its way to sell the Afghan war to women because it knew that you don't get a war unless women agree. And that's been true throughout all of humanity. You think that that just started 30 years ago? No, that's been true for all of human civilization. Female rulers take their nations to war more often than male. Okay, and historically, and people, pagans in history understood this. It's why warlike there was always a goddess of war. Women are warlike as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are very much instrumental to a society going to war. So no, there's no, oh, men wage war. No, men wage war at the behest of women.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, that is a thing. So these wars are at the behest of women. They are directed by men, and the men are enforcing the sacrifice on other men, and also themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate goal is to increase the level of resources that you can provide your women. And that's why often women agitate for war or ideological reasons. But
Yeah.
women are a big part of it. And the fact is that, again, this sacrifice is male only for the most part. It is often at the behest of women, or at least women have to be on board or it won't happen. And it eclipses anything women have ever contributed or been expected to sacrifice to society.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And yet look at what happened in the Ukraine. Once again, men have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even matter if they're trans women. There you go. They have to go. That's it.
Yep.
That's the end. And trans men are like, I think I'm gonna put my hair in pigtails and paint my nails and put some lipstick on, and I'm gonna go be back a woman again.
Yeah.
Okay, like that is biological reality. And again, the vote was the first moment where we just divorced ourselves, and it's not because we gave women the vote. It's because the lies that we made around it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right.
I apologize. Yeah.
So
Yes, I've watched.
So you have seen 1917. Do you think?
Yeah.
I don't want to say did you enjoy it, but did you think it was a good film? Did you think it was?
It was a very good film.
Okay.
It was a very good film. I actually, there were moments where it was horrifically beautiful.
Yeah. That's a good way to put
battles.
it. Yeah.
Not the battles, but these moments where, for example, the soldier's injured and he's floating down in a river full of bodies, and these cherry blossoms are just coating the water. It's very, very horrifyingly beautiful image.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it definitely gave a sense of the surreality that they existed in. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I was going to make a recommendation. I heard, I haven't seen it yet myself, but I heard that if you liked 1917, you'll also like the film adaptation of the book All's Quiet on the Western Front, which I think I'm pretty sure it's another World War One.
There are two.
Story.
There are two. I think there are two adaptations of All Quiet on the Western Front. I watched the one I think was done in like 2020 or no 1920s somewhere. The one
this isn't banned. The old one. This is a more modern. I
watched the one that was banned by Nazi Germany because it was anti-war.
Was it? What? Yeah. So I heard that
it's a really simple test for fascists.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
You know what that test is? They're pro-war.
What?
They're pro-war.
Yeah.
Not just this is a necessary war. No, they want to get into war.
Yeah.
They crave it. All right, because it means that they don't have to deal with all the fractures in their own society. They can export them outwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I'm saying that the most recent adaptation is supposed to be really good. It may not be, as good as the first one. I don't know, but it came highly recommended from people I know. So that's all. I'm just saying if you want to watch another war movie, you could check that one out. So apparently, people are telling me that there were three versions of All's Quiet on the Western Front, one in 1930, one in 1979, and one in 2022.
Mm.
And I'm talking about the
Yeah,
2022 one. So,
I could take a look.
yeah, you could take a look. I mean, so if it might, like, I like a good war movie, but there's a lot of bad war movies. So,
Yeah.
I need somebody to make a recommendation so I don't end up watching Pearl
Um,
Harbor again. Um,
yeah, I don't even think I watched Pearl Harbor. Uh,
if
I'd
you
have to
get a
think about it.
chance, just watch the part where the Japanese bomb and attack Pearl Harbor and forget the love story, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. It's not good.
Oh, I
So,
think I did watch Pearl Harbor, and I was just like, well, thank God she had a spare.
yeah, Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett, and I don't remember who the woman was.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that was my conclusion of that movie. So it must have not been great.
yeah,
Okay.
it's Michael Bay. Anyway, um, but
Oh,
whatever
I
those
should.
corporates and charities celebrating IWD today may think, women are still different to men. Biological reality still matters, and it still has a political dimension.
Okay, but biological reality doesn't matter when you want that sweet, sweet victimhood nectar. But suddenly, biological reality matters when you don't want someone else to get that sweet, sweet victimhood nectar. Like, you created this game board,
Mm-hmm.
and then we are discovering that men play this game better.
Yeah,
Mm. Ooh, what a surprise! Okay, I just
that's
wanted
right.
to
That's
remind
right.
everyone, if you want to send us a message, please do so at
Oh
feedthebadger.com.
yeah, I got a
Just a
super
tip.
chat, and
Yeah,
I did
you
get a
guys
super
haven't been
chat.
sending super chows much.
Yeah, I haven't seen one since yesterday. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, please send one. Is it this topic not appealing? I could see it doesn't appeal. I know we have more conservative members in
well,
our
I
audience.
don't know. I mean, no, I don't think that's the problem. I think that mostly our audience is libertarian, actually, but not
Mm.
whatever brand of
Well, what do you
libertarianism
think?
this woman is purporting to
What do you think of this
believe.
libertarian woman who's like the sanctity of this socialist holiday is being violated?
Yeah, I know. That's just she just doesn't sound like a libertarian to me.
She did. I mean, she had a reasonable take, reasonable for a normie take on Andrew Tate. She's like, "This
Oh,
guy isn't as
really?
dangerous as you're making him out to be," and I'm like, "Yeah, he isn't."
No.
But it's very surface level. It's just like you're playing into by making him into this hysterical specter. You're playing into his desire for notoriety. I'm like,
Oh
yeah,
God.
but here's the
He just
thing. Like,
wants clicks, guys.
yeah, but here's the thing. Like, feminists basically boxed the masculine identity into the worst aspects of being a human being, and then they're just like shocked Pikachu face when these shock jocks seeking notoriety
Uh huh.
essentially embody that, and they're like, well, this is how you be a man, herp a jerp.
Yeah.
You constructed this situation, feminist. I think I even predicted it a couple years ago. I'm like, if you say to young men, you either embody these horrible characteristics or you have to give up any kind of identity as a man. There's going to be there's going to be a fair amount of young men who are like, okay, I guess I'd rather have something than no identity. And what's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting is a lot of these guys are probably just totally like they're not going to ever do any of the antics that Andrew Tate gets up to, but they get
No.
to live out that sense of masculinity vicariously through him. So you've constructed this nonsense. Like, this is what's
Yep.
so really annoying about being on this side of whatever weird divide we were in. You watch these people construct their gigantic trebuchets, like they're like huge siege engines. And then you watch them turn them around to face themselves. And you're like, when you release that, you're going to be hit in the face with a watermelon, right?
Yeah.
Remember that gif where the woman.
Yeah, I know it. Where she's like pulling on the
Yeah.
elastic. Yeah.
And then it just ricochets
It
back
just
into her head.
ricochets and smashes into her face.
You realize physics is gonna, you're about to go into a battle with physics and you're not gonna win. And every single goddamn time, the thing that we say is gonna happen happens. And nobody learns. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a super chat from Albert Nader Retro. I want to read it out before I forget or before it disappears, because sometimes they disappear. $5 Canadian, and he says, I once saw a picture of a battle with one soldier standing, and the caption read, "Male privilege? And it must be under one of these bodies." So he's standing on a pile of bodies, basically.
Yeah, it really struck me when I saw what was happening in the Ukraine. I'm not talking about any of the politics, but just these men, and I believe that they were conscripting up to 60 or 55 or 60. These men were now expected to defend the infrastructure that Ukrainian women enjoyed. They enjoyed the full benefit of the society, of the infrastructure, of the comfort, of the economy. But when shit hits the fan, they just can disappear, and the men have to stay and defend it. And that is the reality. And that is the first time we started to lie to ourselves about the reality of men and women. And it's just been lie after lie after lie since then. And honestly, a lot of the conservative women who are upset about trans women are worried about trans women going into women's bathrooms and stuff like that. That's like the trans maxers are not after that. Like most of the men who want to become women to gain something, they want access to the scholarships, the preferential hiring. They want access to actually having their custody rights respected. They want access to protection by the police instead of being the police's, like, I don't know, bludgeoning stick, whatever. They want access to being treated with equal dignity as women are treated, and equal rights as women are treated. And they'll tell you that. The trans maxers will tell you that. And a lot of them aren't even interested in a relationship with a woman. They're going to be like, they're going to do the femboy thing, and be happy with that. And can you really honestly blame them?
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you honestly blame them? They want a job. They want respect. They want to be treated like human beings. They don't want to be targets of police, and they don't want to be targets of gigantic media corporations calling them awful people just for having a penis, or just identifying as men, I guess now. And they're not even going to bother you, ladies. They're not even going after the lesbians. They're fine with a relationship with another man who's okay with them.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that honestly is probably the majority of the trans maxers. And I can't say that I find that unsympathetic, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like, if a man wants to live life as a woman, I can understand it. There's a lot of advantages. So, all right. So, continuing. Huh?
Why would you, like, just a question. I know this is a really odd question. Would you consider it?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I think I'd rather just, because it just seems like, it just comes with too many problems. And also, I'm not looking to be treated special or anything like that. So I just don't.
Well, just equally, not even special. Just
but I don't know. It's.
Well, here's the thing: men shouldn't have to. Like,
no, I shouldn't have.
You should, like, this is the difference between men's rights activists and everybody else with the two stinking animals fighting in their brain. Like, men shouldn't have to identify as women to be treated like human beings.
Yep.
They shouldn't have to at this point. And we should be talking about this situation honestly and the reality of our world honestly. Starting with getting rid of the idea that society could ever be constructed for men's benefit at the expense of women. It's absurd. And you know what's really funny is when I get into arguments with feminists, they say, no, that's not what I believe. I believe that men are just in positions of power. And I'm like, well, do you think they use those positions of power for their own benefit at the expense of women? And they're like, well, I don't think they intend to. And I'm like, well, if they didn't intend to, then patriarchy is women's fault. Because when somebody doesn't intend something and you say, oh, hey, I think you're doing this negative thing to me. And then they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll stop now. Was that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then patriarchy was maintained by women simply not telling men? Like, what?
Yeah.
And it's because they don't want to admit, because it's so ridiculous to assert that society would be created for men's benefit at the expense of women. It's so against the very instincts that they are exploiting by saying it. Anyway, it's a bit of a rant.
Okay. So, what?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I thought you did. Okay, so guys, again, if you have any thoughts on this, you can send us a super chow, or a super chat, or a rumble rant. We take all three for now. We may add like Streamlabs, I think. Let's Twitch to it too. I'm not really sure. So, all right. So anyway, I look forward to your thoughts. Continuing on, women, not trans women, give birth and have children. And it is women, not trans women, who are still expected to take on the work of child rearing. We are the ones battling to get proper treatment from doctors when we reach the menopause. Is it the menopause? I thought it was just called menopause. And unlike trans women, women still do not have full bodily autonomy. The right to abortion remains regulated by criminal law in the UK, with women needing the sign-off of 2 doctors to exercise it.
That's a bold statement. That's a bold statement, Ella Whelan. In a country where women can't rape men with their vaginas.
Yeah.
Like, geez. Okay, I don't know about the menopause thing. I'm sure this is yet another sweet grasp at the victim nectar.
Yeah.
Okay, so abortion remains regulated by criminal law in the UK, with women needing to sign off on 2 doctors to exercise it. You know that if men got pregnant, they would never have access to abortion.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
and that's just like,
I'm pretty sure
it's kind of a silly point to try to make. Basically, what you're really doing is just pointing out that you don't have the same biology as me, therefore, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it doesn't work the other way, does it? Men don't have, like, men can't defend themselves using biology, but she can defend herself using biology. All right, so women do not have full bodily autonomy. I'm pretty sure I could find evidence in the UK of a woman raping a man and him being expected to pay child support. I mean, I know that the UK doesn't define women forcing men to have sex as rape, but, you know, using the term generally understood by human beings who aren't part of a third world nonsense society, you know, we understand that women can rape men. Apparently the UK doesn't. I'm pretty sure even the Commonwealth
we understand that
women
can sexually assault men.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is most people would call that rape.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Except for the UK, you know, they haven't gotten with the 21st century. You see.
Yeah.
Of course, the CDC in the U.S. doesn't define that as rape either, but thanks to feminist Mary Koss, but whatever. So I'm pretty sure I could find the ultimate point is I'm pretty sure I could find evidence that the UK would expect a man who was raped by a woman to give him a woman, if she got pregnant from that, child support. So men don't have bodily autonomy. In fact, there is a case in the States, it's a really critical case, that lays that out. Men are obligated to their children regardless of how the conception took place. So if a man is forced to have sex with a woman, he is a father whether or not he agrees to it. Okay? That is, like, you're talking about women do not have full bodily autonomy. Compared to what? The platonic ideal of womanhood that never gets pregnant except by will?
Yeah.
Take that up with Mother Nature, because you definitely have more bodily autonomy than men in law. Battling to get proper treatment from doctors. So the fact that you have vastly more funding for your medical issues relative to men isn't sufficient. Still a victim of that, are we? You have to, and it is trans. We're still expected to take on the work of child rearing. Well, maybe support shared custody with fathers. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to whine and bitch about, like, having to mother a child that you chose to have, then yeah, maybe advocate that, men have the opportunity to get involved too. And maybe
And
make,
also,
better decisions, like
yeah.
who you sleep with and stuff. So that
And
doesn't happen.
Better decisions about your birth control so you don't get pregnant in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, anyway. But what the other thing is, the overarching argument here doesn't make sense to me. Are trans women in any way saying, now that we are women, or considered legally women, we are going after abortion rights, or women's right to be treated properly for menopause, or
she's trying to basically explain how what women's challenges, women's suffering is
that trans women don't face.
It's trans women, they're not even
this is
close.
A victim of.
Yeah, they are. They're the victim of that. And the funny thing is that, things like menopause and, like, getting knocked up. I'm sorry, look, I'm not an SJW, but trans women have it way harder. Like, they have high suicide rates. They have addiction problems. They get attacked by people. I mean, that is reality. I'm not saying that they're, like, victims of a higher order, but it's rich coming from this woman that to, like, try to basically say, oh, but I have menopause, or I'm going to, or something, right, at some point in the future. Do you notice something? I think I'm not even sure what menopause does. Like, my mom went through it. She was basically the same person. So
yeah, I don't know. It makes you less attractive, I guess. That's probably some kind of medical emergency for some women. All right.
I don't know.
I want to point something out. There is an implicit understanding that she's working off of.
Mm-hmm.
She's essentially saying biological women deserve to be referred to as women because we are the bigger victims.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's not actually biology she's appealing to. It's victimhood.
Yeah.
She's saying biological women are the bigger victims, therefore we get the right to be referred to as women.
Mm-hmm.
Or we get a day. Like, actually, this is so trivial. We get to be celebrated on this day of celebration.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice.
In this month of celebration.
This month of celebration should only be celebrating real women or biological women, because biological women suffer so much more than trans women. And because we suffer so much more than trans women, we're the ones who deserve to be celebrated. And also we're the ones who deserve to be referred to as the term women. Because women is victimhood.
Yeah.
And okay, good luck with that. That's
all right. I'm going to continue.
Good, because we're almost done.
Yeah, we are almost done, and that's good because I have an after show, and then I got to go pick up the wife. So why are we expected to pretend that these differences don't exist in the name of inclusivity? Again, you guys wanted this. Like, this is what you did.
Okay, women, there are a lot of, actually few women are giving birth now or having children.
Mm-hmm.
And many women are avoiding menopause with estrogen supplements. And your ridiculous assertion that women have less bodily autonomy than men is ridiculous. This wouldn't even be a discussion if women had the same biological bodily autonomy as men. So why do we pretend that these differences don't exist? Well, nobody's pretending those differences don't exist. I don't hear the trans rights activists saying, and once we have conquered the fortress of womanhood, We shall remove menopause from the list of things that doctors treat. We shall remove all abortion rights from women. And we shall make sure that women are always raising the children. They're not a threat to these things. So the reason to bring these up, because they're just a red herring, is because she's just trying to say we're the bigger victims, therefore. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore I win. In this, and this is the game, isn't it? We get rid of the biological differences, so the only thing defining womanhood is victimhood. And now we're going to argue over that.
Yep.
And we're going to descend more and more into this mire of nonsense.
All right. Of course.
Of course, she's switching back. She's switching back because, we don't want to allow for a biological argument.
Yeah.
When it helps men. Okay, go ahead.
Of course, the differences between men and women. Again, this has. I don't know why you're bringing up men. Like, we aren't involved. The differences between men and women in public and social life are often marginal. Most of the time, we can take on and succeed in the same jobs, fight for the same causes, and share the same experiences. But there are issues which affect women and not men. And there are times when women will want to express solidarity with one another based on those shared experiences. Do men have issues that only other men can understand? I mean, maybe she isn't trying to leave us out, but
well, she's certainly leaving you out of the bodily autonomy issue, and also the child rearing issues.
That's true.
And proper treatment from doctors. Like, all of these issues that she mentioned actually wallop men worse. Like, honestly, custody issues are really much more damaging to men. Getting proper medical care, while judging from the fact that the spending on female medical care vastly eclipses the spending on male, I would say that is actually more of a men's issue. And bodily autonomy, definitely more of a men's issue, considering the draft, considering circumcision, considering the fact that if a man is raped by a woman, he still is expected to take responsibility for the child. Okay, and she often gets custody, or almost always, actually. And so I would say that
that men and women don't actually share the same experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, the specific way that these issues affect women, definitely they're different than how they affect men, but they still affect men. But then again, why would these issues mean that trans women should be excluded from International Women's Day? Unless you think that womanhood is defined by victimhood. I don't know. It doesn't even make, like, are you celebrating? Did she refer to this as a celebration? Your day of glory. Okay. So your day of glory is wallowing about all of your victimhoods?
Yeah.
Like,
and how it's men's fault somehow?
Yeah.
Like,
well, this is also men's fault.
She's
somehow.
talking about trans women, but she's basically just saying that they're men. So
yeah.
And I don't think that is a uniquely conservative perspective. There's plenty of feminist women that they just hate men enough to where they're like, oh, those are men. They're not really identifying as women. They're just trying to get closer to us. They're trying to get into our spaces. And
I think, honestly, a lot of trans maxers probably would be fine with like a unisex bathroom. And dating men and avoiding women's change rooms if they got access to the other stuff, like actually being considered a rape victim when you're raped. Protection against domestic violence by your partner, preferential treatment in terms of scholarships and hiring and all of that, and getting money from the government if you need it, that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure if you said to them, a lot of the trans maxers, hey, okay, this is how you'll be accepted, they'd be like, that's fine. I just want the consideration and the respect and the dignity. And you can have your change spaces, your menopause pills, your abortions, and your child rearing, or not being forced to rear your children. I don't know what she's asking for there.
Yeah. All right. So,
It's sort of funny that she's like, women have to raise their children and give birth to them.
Yeah, I know.
But we should be celebrated for being mothers.
Yeah, while also resenting our children or trying to kill them in the womb. So, this International Women's Day, let's stop pretending otherwise. And let's stop telling women that we all need to make room for biological males.
Well, good luck with that, Ella Whelan, because there's a huge group of liberal feminists who like the piety and the sweet, sweet victim nectar of associating with trans women. Mm-hmm. Good luck. And really, you set the stage for this, so... the only way you're going to stop it is by recognizing men's right to exist.
Yeah. I don't see any comments, so that's basically the end of it. Again... let them fight is my my view on it. We'll see how this goes. I think it's going to be hopefully a pretty spicy Women's Month of TERFs versus intersectionals, and see how it shakes out. So Albernator Retro gives us $5 Canadian and says, in 2016, 3 women were convicted of sexually assaulting a young footballer in the UK. Details read like a rape to me, but I'm a guy, so I'm clearly biased. It probably was. Remember, they don't have... Men can't be raped in the UK. Sexually assaulted. So, if it looks like a rape, that means it's a sexual assault.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. And like I said... Honestly, I can sympathize with the transmaxers. Mm-hmm. I honestly would want to fight for a world where men get that dignity and respect and aren't discriminated against and don't have to identify as women in order. Now, I was thinking about that. If a young man who is an incel just transitions to being a woman, he instantly, or she instantly gains in human decency. Like expression of human decency towards her and respect. I mean, this is, in many cases, this is the only way young men could conceivably access any kind of respect or any kind of being heard. And that fact is tremendously depressing.
Yep.
Because young men should not have to identify as women to be heard. And that's what's happening. And they don't want to admit it. They want to talk about, abortion rights, bodily autonomy. Our medicine isn't treated as seriously as men's, even though we get like 5 times the funding. They want to say this stuff. But the honest to God truth is that if a young man identifies as a woman for the first time in his life, he's heard. Yep. And that is not a healthy society.
No.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this.
Well, I think they did. They said that this is a great topic. I think they were maybe they're just broke right now. But also, like, they got distracted by
the goodness of the topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's interesting.
Well, I think our perspective is definitely unique on this topic.
Yeah, I think so. And, I mean, I'm just like, this is simply like what was going to happen, is how I see it.
Yeah.
Women were trying to, like you said, get their hands on the sweet victimhood nectar of the trans community or the trans population, and the portion of that and their female defenders, they were going to clash. Like, there were going to be the feminists that were going to make themselves the victim of trans women, and then there were the feminists that were going to make trans women the victims of regular feminists, like biological, deterministic, feminists. And I don't have a dog in this fight, but I want to see how this plays out. It's like, I don't like going to, I've never been to like a pit fight where they have pit bulls try to kill each other, because I don't want to see that. But I do want to see this.
This
You
is
know?
very entertaining.
Yeah.
And honestly, it probably will signal. I think this is probably it. This is if you wanted a horseman of the apocalypse,
Mm-hmm.
it's this probably this argument
The
that this is
Herald.
it.
Yeah.
This is the trumpet at the end of freaking civilization. Because I don't think we can go any further with this belief about women being victims of society. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're at the Omega game here. This is the end game, and
Yeah.
end game Avengers trans woman edition.
Yeah. I
Super
was thinking
trans.
the Highlander movie, but
Yeah, there can
what
only
do
be
I know?
one.
Yeah, the end game, Highlander end game. Yeah.
And once again, I think this is. I think are we good? We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm gonna do a patron show after this, so and then I gotta go pick up Lindsay.
Yeah, you gotta go pick up your wife.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I just want to remind everyone that if you want to support us, you can do so at feedthebadger.com. There are various options. If you want to send us a tip afterwards, which would be very appreciated because it keeps the lights on here, and we definitely have a unique perspective. I don't think there's anywhere that's saying what we're saying about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have predicted the rise of Andrew Tate's because I knew that when feminists started to define masculinity in its worst aspects, there would be men who are still seeking a masculine identity, but I guess don't want to challenge feminism. So there would be like icons of that kind of masculinity. Because, if it's a choice between negative masculinity and not having an identity at all, men will choose. There's a certain subset of men who will choose the negative. And they won't even do it. They'll just be like, yeah, I'll live vicariously through this icon.
Yeah.
And you predict the whole trans versus original feminist thing because it was the next thing that was going to happen. It's every single wave of feminism is defined by the group it excluded and then eventually warmed to and said, hey, I like your victimhood. Come with us.
Mm-hmm.
The original suffragettes hated black people and they used condemnation of black and poor people to get the vote basically or to agitate for it. But then they warmed to the victimhood of the civil rights movement. Second wave of feminists appropriated that while still many of them condemning black male sexuality. But they hated gay men. And then they appropriated the gay men because, sweet victimhood to be had there. And now we're at the trans women stage. And it's going to be some crazy shit.
Yeah. By the way, you know that they appropriated gay men because the acronym used to be GLBT. And the gay men were first, but the lesbians, they fought to make it LGBT. And I guess LGBT kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit, but that was like purely a power move. They're putting themselves first. So even though nobody gives a fuck about lesbians.
No.
No, nobody cares. Anyway, did you already do your shill
they don't care about trans men. And honestly, they still treat black women considerably better than black men.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. In fact, I think black men are only useful to these people if they can exploit,
when they're dead.
Their death. Like something. That's
Let's be
literally
honest,
what
they're only useful dead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Feed the
once again, if
Badger.
you want to support, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. If you want to send us a tip, you can do that at any time afterwards. So if you're listening to this after it's aired and you're like, hey, these are some interesting people, I shall support them. You can do that there. All right, back to you, Brian.
All right, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live. Leave us a comment. Please leave us a comment. I want to see the conversation rolling. And if you could, please share this video. It's probably the best thing you can do because it will get, you know, basically eyeballs on our streams, and they are like not, you know, plagued with technical difficulties now. So I hope that that will work. That will be the normal going forward. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.